Good morning. My name is Lee Cummings, the author of the Negro Question book series. I'm coming before you today, just with a short video on the European Union. It is all you're hearing in the news today, besides the Ukrainians and the Russians, but you keep hearing the European Union. And I want to explain something to you that uh, the second coming of Christ is tethered or attached to the rise of the European Union. And I want to show you that Daniel the prophet knew this 2,600 years ago. This thing was revealed to Daniel the prophet. I want to go to the second chapter of Daniel. I'm only going to read you a couple of verses, but I'm going to show you that the European Union uh, was revealed to the prophet as the 10 toes on this statue that you see. So let's go back. Let's go to Daniel, the second chapter. I'm going to pick this thing up at verse 1. And in the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, he dreamed dreams wherein his spirit was troubled and his sleep brake from him. I want to skip down to verse 3. And the king said unto them, I've dreamed a dream, and my spirit was troubled to know the dream. Then spake the Chaldeans to the king in Syriac, O king, live forever. Tell thy servant the dream, and we will show the interpretation. Now, Syriac is from the country Syria. And there was a time when there was no such thing as Syria. The ancient name of Syria was Aram, Aram. Aram was the son of Shem, and the people from Aram spoke Aramaic. And so here they call it Syriac when it should have been Aramaic. It's a translation, but that's not the lesson today. Now he had the dream, and so they had to go get Daniel out of the dungeon. So what I want you to do is take your time and read this entire chapter. They had to go get Daniel, being one of the wise men in that kingdom at that time. I'm going to skip down to verse 31. It says, now Daniel is telling the king what he dreamed because the Lord had revealed this thing to the prophet. Thou, king, sawest and behold a great image, like the one I got on your screen. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. This image here was of fine gold. This represents Babylon. His breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet part iron, part clay. Verse 34 is the kicker. It's the one you need. This is the one that's pointing toward the European Union. And we'll tie this off in the book of Revelation. Thou sawest so that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and break them to pieces. Now, I'm going to skip down. I'm going to get past all this. I'm going to get down to the interpretation of the dream. Verse 38, 37. Thou, O king, art the king of kings, for the God of heaven have given thee a kingdom, power, strength, and glory. 38. Wheresoever the children of men dwell, the fowls of the heaven hath he given into thine hand, and hath made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this here to go. This was in the dream that Nebuchadnezzar had. This was Babylon. Now, verse 39 is the Medes and the Persians. And after thee shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee. That was the Medes and the Persians under Darius the Mede. In fact, I should have a printout of this. There he is. Darius the Mede was next. And another third kingdom. See, this was the Medes and the Persians. You know, the Medes and Persians came first. Then Cyrus the Great came, defeated the Medes, and he ruled the world. He was the one that had the distinction of letting the Judeans go back. I think it was 42,300 went back of tribes of Benjamin, Judah, and Levi to uh, they came out of the captivity under Cyrus' decree in 539 BC. Uh, and another third kingdom brass which shall bear rule over the whole earth. Medes and the Persians of Persia. No, That brass kingdom is Greece under Alexander the Great. Alexander ruled around 323 BC, but it's been speculation that he was poisoned to death while he was in his 30s. I think somewhere around 33. And then it says, verse 40, and the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, and that's going to be the Caesars. That's Rome. For as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise. Right? Now check this out. I'm going to skip down to verse 42. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. Now, what does he mean by that? Well, let's see. The European Union actually has 27 members, but the book said the kingdom was going to be partly strong. Well, the toes were partly strong and partly weak. And what the angel what the angel was teaching Daniel was that look at the 10 members. These are the 10 permanent members. You got 27 members total. They called, but the 10, which is what they call themselves, Austria, Germany, no, they have zero nuclear weapons. Belgium, no nuclear weapons. Bulgaria, zero nuclear weapons. Croatia, Cyprus, Czech Republic, Denmark, Estonia, Finland. Only one nation in the 10 permanent members has nuclear weapons. That's France. All these other nations barely even have armies. That's the reason why they propped up the Ukrainians to go die for them. So they basically paying the Ukrainians billions of dollars to die for them in their war against the Russians. That's why President Trump came out a week or two ago and said that this was a proxy war that was being fought by the European Union against Russia. He admitted it. Now check this out. So the Gentile rulership of the world has been given to you in the order that it was supposed to happen, and it failed just like that, like dominoes. But now remember, this stone, I want to skip down to verse, I want to skip down to verse 44. I want to read 43 again. I want to read 43 again. And whereas thou sawest iron, now I'll read 42 again. Verse 42. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron, part of clay, so the king should be partly strong and partly broken. That's what I just showed you. Partly strong, partly broken. These nations, these European nations are basically weak outside of France. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. Why? They all retain basically what he's saying is they're going to retain their national identity. And they've done that. Even though they're the European Union, Belgium, they all still say, hey, I'm from Belgium, I'm from Bulgaria, I'm Denmark, I'm Finland. Now, check this out. And this is what I want you to hear. Verse 44. And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom should not be left to other people. Wait a minute. In the days of these kings? What are you talking about in the days of these kings? In the days of the European Union, the book said the God of heaven, going to set up his kingdom. These 10 toes will become 10 horns in I think the 17th chapter of Revelation. I told you this is going to be a quick piece. I got up early this morning and I had a mind to do this. Check this out. Revelation, the 17th chapter. We were back here in Daniel. We're in the year 606 BC. Now we fast forward in 2,000 years into the future to our generation, and this is the year 2025. So now we fast forwarded on the timeline to our current generation, and listen to what John the apostle has to say. Revelation 17:1. And there came one of the seven angels which had the seven vials and talked with me, saying, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, with whom, verse 2, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. Verse 3, so he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet colored beast full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. So this woman was sitting on these waters. And you'll see that and these waters represent nation, tongues, and people. Now, this woman is calling herself the bride, but the book said she's a whore. And the woman is representing the church. And I got a second on the back up to the 12th chapter. The 12th chapter of Revelation. We're coming right back to 17, and this is going to be brief today. Revelation 12 and 1. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. Who is that? That's the church. That is the first church. That is Israel. This woman had 12 stars. Those 12 stars represent the 12 tribes. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered. And I'm going to read verse 5 just to show you that this is the church. And she brought forth a man child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and a child was caught up unto God and to his throne. That's Yeshua. Well, that's Jesus. So the woman is representing the church. So you got one church that is the bride. That church keeps the commandments. Then you got another church that's professing that she is the bride, but the angel said, no, that ain't the bride. That is the whore who is pawning herself off to the world that she is the Lord's bride. But the Lord's bride has certain ornaments on her. You know, the ornaments that's on the bride is keeping of the Sabbath day, the keeping of his feast days, the keeping of the dietary law. These are all the ornaments on the bride. Now let me show you something else. And whether you can receive this or not, my job is to warn you that I did a lesson one time called A Knock at Midnight. I stole that title from Martin Luther King. But I did a lesson called A Knock at Midnight. Tonight is a knock at midnight because this thing is closer than you realize. Now check this out. Now, this woman has 7 heads and 10 horns, right? Now you know the 10 horns were the 10 toes from the book of Daniel. So back there, it was 10 toes. Why was it 10 toes? Because the feet was the only thing that was going to be left on the statue when Jesus shows up, not his first time, but his second time. Why? When Jesus showed up the first time, remember what he said about himself? He said, this is the stone that the builders refused. He said, and it has become the what? The head or the chief cornerstone. How come he didn't hit Rome on his feet when he showed up? Because it wasn't his time to hit the statue on the feet. Why? Because the 10 toes, certain parts of the statue were still in existence. Remember, the book talked about another beast was going to rise, and it was going to be like iron. Well, that was Rome. And so the Roman Empire was still in effect when he came at the first time, when he came in the flesh. So it was not time for the stone to perform. That was 2,000 years ago. So you catapult on the timeline forward 2,000 years, and guess what? Now when Yeshua or Jesus comes back, but he's coming back as a ruach, a spirit being. This is why the scripture said it was a stone cut out of a mountain without hands. This is a spiritual stone. And this stone is coming back to hit the 10 toes or the 10 horns on the feet, because that is all that is left of the statue from the second chapter of Daniel. Skip down to verse 6. And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. Looked like a vampire to me, but she got drunk off that blood. In verse 7, the angel said to me, wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell the mystery of the woman and the beast that carried her, which had the 7 heads and the 10 horns. They'll go that 10 again. Horns represent what? Horns represent power and nations. And the 7 heads was what? We could do the math, but I don't want to focus on the heads today. I want to focus on these horns. What verse is that? Verse 7. I don't want to read that either, but I want to skip down to verse 9. And here's the man which has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits. Oh, there's only one church on the earth that sits on 7 mountains. That's the Vatican. That's Rome. Now watch this. Verse 12. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no power as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. Remember, the 10 toes became what? These 10 toes became 10 horns. So what did the Lord say? He said, in the days of these kings, will the God of heaven set his kingdom up. And that stone is supposed to hit these 10 toes, what? On the foot. And I'm going to show you why. Verse 13, these have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. So the European Union is going to be in that they made history. They made the biblical history book. And I don't think, and I'm pretty sure, not the way that they want to be known. But these they're going to be moved to fight against God or Jesus when he comes back. They're going to all be gathered down to the valley of Megiddo, Armageddon. And they're going to be tricked to go down there because the way they're going to get the nations to go down there is they're going to keep talking. They're going to keep doing those movies with Hollywood where they show that that the earth is being invaded by aliens. And so that is how they're going to get all the nations to go down and fall in this battle because they've been taught their whole lives that that aliens are going to invade the planet, and when it happens, it's going to be under that pretense. Now, I'm going to read you. This had nothing to do with this lesson I was doing, but I'm going to read it to you anyway. Revelations 19 and 19. And I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war with him that sat on the horse and against his army. But I want to back up. I want to go to 19 and 11. And I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse. And he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True. And in righteousness he doth judge and make war. His eyes were as a flame of fire. Wait a minute. His eyes was as a flame of fire. I know I'm not supposed to be doing this, but I just can't help myself. I'm going to go to Revelation, the 1st chapter. Let's see who this is that's on this white horse, whose eyes are a flame of fire. Revelation, the 1st chapter, and verse 9. I, John, who also am your brother and companion in tribulation and in the kingdom and patience of Jesus Christ, was on the isle that's called Patmos for the word of the Lord and for the testimony of Jesus Christ. Verse 10, I was in the Ruach what would we say? Adonai Yam, on the Lord's day. It heard behind me a great voice as of a trumpet. Verse 12. And I turned to see the voice that spake with me, and being turned, I saw 7 golden candlesticks. And in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man. You know, that was Jesus' nickname, or Yeshua's nickname. Clothed with a garment down to the foot, and girt about the paps with a golden girdle. His head and his hairs was what? White like wool, as white as snow. His eyes was as a flame of fire. Oh, he had nappy hair. He had an afro, woolly hair. In verse 15, and his feet were like a fine brass. So he had nappy hair, and his skin looked like it had been burned. Now I go back to Revelations 19, and I'm going to read 19 and 12 again. Revelation 19 and 12. His eyes were as a flame of fire, but he also had what? Woolly hair, and his feet looked like it had been burned in the furnace. He's Jesus Christ that's coming back is a black God. And the question is, can you serve him? And that's the question. His eyes was a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, and he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. He was dipped with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God. He was called the Word. John said, in the beginning was the Word was God, and the Word was with God. John testified to this in the Synoptic Gospels. It says in verse 14, and the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. And out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, that it should smite the nation. So when he shows up, he's not coming by himself. He's coming back with legions of angels. It's going to be an invasion of the earth. By who? By the one they call Jesus, or the one that the Hebrews call Yeshua. Everybody got a name for him, but he's on his way back. And when is he coming back? He's coming back during the what? The days of these kings, the 10 toes, the EU. I'm going to skip down to verse 19. We're in Revelations 19 and 19. And I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat on the horse and against his army. Don't you remember what we read in Revelation 17? That the 10 horns, the 10 toes, which became the 10 horns, they fought against the Lord of Lords and the King of Kings, and he destroyed them. The European Union's end has already been written in this book. I think it was Revelation 17, it was Revelation 17:12. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no power as of yet, but received power as kings 1 hour with the beast. 13, these have one mind. Who is these 10 horns? It's the European Union. These have one mind and shall give their power and strength to the beast. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. The European Union is in this number. I now ran back to Revelations 19 and 19. This is getting good, but I'm trying to get out of here. He says, and I saw the beasts and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat on the horse and against his army. And the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast, and them that worshipped his image. These both were cast alive into a lake of fire burning with brimstone. Listen, the European Union is going to fall. It has been preordained by Elohim Yisrael. It has been preordained by the God of Israel that the European Union, the 10 toes, which became the 10 toes in 587. No, the 10 toes from Daniel, the 2nd chapter, became the 10 horns in our generation. Daniel saw this 2,600 years ago. He saw the end. He saw the end of the European Union. And I'm trying to warn you today. And what am I trying to warn you of? I'm trying to warn you of this one thing. You are hearing the European Union on your television stations, your radios, you're hearing preachers talking about them, but they're not telling you the truth. And the truth of the matter is, in the days of these kings, the Lord has declared that he was going to come back and set his kingdom up on the earth. Now, I did not intend to say as much as I said or to talk as much as I've talked, but I came to warn you. And let me tell you something else. Zelensky, there's a word for him in Aramaic. In Hebrew, we call it shady. But shady, like you hear a rapper saying shady. Even Brother Eminem, he calls himself in one of his songs Slim Shady. But what he doesn't know is the word shady in Hebrew means demon. Zelensky is shady, and there's a spirit on him, and the spirit on Zelensky is a spirit to try to drive all the nations of Europe uh, uh, to start World War III. But what the people don't understand is, and those people who lust after war, is that there's a reason why the European Union don't want the war to end. See, the European Union is a nation of parasites. President Trump told the truth about them. They are parasites. Everywhere they go, they have to have a host to feed off of. And when President Trump made the comment, there was this uproar, but it is the truth. They've been feeding off other nations for hundreds of years. In I think it was 1884, it was called the Belgium Conference, and they had the conference with King Leopold, and that's when they decided they was going. It was in the 1800s, but they was going to carve up Africa and colonize Africa. Then in 1923, 1927, they turned back around. They started the League of Nations. Funny thing, at the Belgium conference, there were no black nations invited. With King Leopold, at the League of Nations, there was 0 black nations. And then in 1940s, they came up with this thing called the United Nations. It's only about 60 to 80 years old. And the United Nations, in its very inception, there were no black nations invited. It was always this good old boys club. So this European Union concept is us against the world. And what have they been doing? The slave trade. The Europeans, they were parasitic and feeding off the blood, sweat, and tears of the captives, the African captives, what they call slaves, abada. Then when the concept slavery eroded, then they went back in as colonizers, extracting parasites, extracting the natural resources out of Africa back to Europe, and this is what fueled the Industrial Revolution. The goods and materials and minerals that came out of Africa. So now we have a situation where the Africans, I think seven African nations expelled the French. I know for a fact that it was Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali, Chad. They kicked the French out of their countries. Well, the French was down there pretending to offer security for these African nations. They finally had enough. And there's another thing. I think 25% of the Europeans' uranium comes from Niger, and 50% of the uranium that the French need for their nuclear programs come from Niger. Niger kicked the French out. The British have been kicked out of their colonial holdings. So these parasitic European nations have been detached from their host. This is the reason why you have this frantic fervor in Europe right now. The reason why the French keep sending military hardware to the Ukrainians. Why? The host right now, the new host is Ukraine. This is how blind the administration is, or that regime is. They are currently the host of the parasites, France and Britain, and these other European nations. Europe is bankrupt, y'all. Europe is bankrupt, and Europe is frantic right now. And Europe is desperate because the parasite needs a host in order to survive. And what has transpired is this. the Africans, they cut the parasite off. And so there will not be any peace because the parasite needs a host to survive. Uh, Again, my name is Lee Cummings. I'm the author of the Negro Question book series. I want to thank you for your time this morning. You can go to the bookstore, thenegroquestion.com, the Negro Question, Negro Question bookstore.equid.com, or you can go to Amazon and buy my books. I just published a new book called Genesis Volume 1. This book right here, Genesis Volume 1, is 15 chapters of Aramaic Hebrew with translations and pronunciations, and it contains the Tanakh and the Torah. Also, there's another book that actually fits this lesson that I did today that I sell, that I wrote myself. It's called The Seventh Seal. It gives you step-by-step outlines of how the second coming of Christ is going to come about, when a man of sin goes inside the temple, how many years the tribulation period, what to expect, fleeing time. All these things are outlined in this book I wrote called The Seventh Seal. And I wrote that book in 3 languages. It's written in English, Spanish, and French. And as I always say, I want to thank you for your time. Stay on the wall, don't give up, and I'll see you at the finish line.